Tesla was once hailed as the future of transportation, a bold revolution on wheels led by a man who promised to take humanity to Mars. But behind the flashy unveiling, soaring stock prices, and viral tweets, there's a darker truth that nearly shattered the company before it became a global powerhouse. Few people remember that Tesla was once just weeks away from bankruptcy, not once, but multiple times. And even as it grew, the company carried with it a trail of disturbing red flags, deadly crashes tied to its Autopilot feature, SEC lawsuits, triggered by careless tweets, and a toxic corporate culture that insiders say pushed workers to the brink. While fans worship Elon Musk as a visionary genius, critics warn that Tesla's rapid ascent was built on smoke mirrors and relentless risk-taking that bordered on recklessness. The question isn't just how close Tesla came to collapsing, but whether that collapse is still lurking beneath the surface. In this video, we peel back the layers of hype to uncover the scandal's near misses and silenced voices that Elon Musk never wants you to hear. From secret financial struggles and market manipulation to whistleblowers exposing dangerous work conditions, this is the story of how Tesla almost went bankrupt, and why some believe it still might. Because when a company promises the future but hides the cost, someone always pays the price. Before Tesla became a Wall Street darling and a symbol of Silicon Valley ambition, it was just another scrappy startup teetering on the edge of oblivion. In fact, Elon Musk himself has admitted that the company came within a few weeks of bankruptcy during its darkest hours. The year was 2008, and the global financial crisis had hit the auto industry like a freight train. Established giants like General Motors and Chrysler were seeking bailouts, and for a fledgling electric car company with no profits and massive expenses, survival seemed almost impossible. Tesla's first vehicle, the Roadster, was plagued with delays, cost overruns, and technical setbacks. Production was a nightmare, with parts sourced from around the world and assembled by hand. Despite the media buzz surrounding electric cars, Tesla had only delivered a fraction of what it had promised. And most crucially, it was rapidly running out of money. Elon Musk, who had poured in tens of millions of his own fortune from PayPal, was now forced to make a fateful decision. He took over as CEO and made a personal gamble. He wired the last of his cash into Tesla just to keep payroll afloat. There were moments when employees had no idea if they'd still have a job the next week. The company cut staff, begged for investor faith, and struggled to secure funding in a collapsing economy. Meanwhile, internal conflicts brewed. Co-founders Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning had already been pushed out, and lawsuits flew over who truly founded Tesla. While Musk's image as the company's savior grew, many early employees saw a different story, one of ambition bordering on arrogance of decisions made in chaos rather than strategy. Tesla's near-death experience wasn't a one-time fluke. Even after the Roadster finally reached the market, the company's finances remained a ticking time bomb. It needed billions to develop the Model S build factories and scale production, none of which were guaranteed. In 2012, the Model S launch was another make-or-break moment. If customers didn't line up, if quality wasn't high, or if they couldn't deliver, it could have buried the company. But against the odds, the Model S was a hit. It was stylish, fast, and full of tech appeal. Reviews were glowing, and Tesla's brand began to form around cutting-edge innovation. Investors started to believe. Stock prices climbed. Suddenly, Tesla had a future. But this salvation came with a price. To meet production goals, Tesla pushed its workers to extremes. Gigafactory employees worked long shifts with punishing deadlines. Quality control often took a back seat to speed. There were whispers even back then that Tesla was skating dangerously close to the edge, not just financially, but ethically. Still, the media loved the comeback story. Elon Musk was no longer just a rich entrepreneur. He was now being called a real-life Tony Stark, and the public bought into the myth. Yet beneath the surface, the cracks never disappeared. The pressure to deliver on impossible timelines, the obsession with beating Wall Street expectations, and the cult of personality forming around Musk all hinted at a company driven more by momentum than by stability. Tesla had avoided bankruptcy by the skin of its teeth, but the reckless gamble it took to survive would become a defining trait in the years to come. What happened in 2008 wasn't just a one-time crisis, it was the template for everything Tesla would do next. As Tesla clawed its way back from the brink, its recovery became synonymous with Elon Musk's unorthodox leadership style, part showman, part provocateur, and entirely unpredictable. While investors cheered the company's skyrocketing stock price and bold product announcements, Musk's behavior on social media was quickly becoming a liability. In August 2018, Musk sent a now infamous tweet that would trigger one of the most consequential investigations in Tesla's history. Am considering taking Tesla private at 40%. Funding secured. The statement sent shockwaves through the market. Tesla's shares surged. Trading was briefly halted, and analysts scrambled to understand what was happening. But behind the scenes, there was no secured funding, no formal deal, just a number that Musk later admitted was a joke referencing marijuana culture meant to impress his then-girlfriend. The tweet wasn't just reckless, it was illegal. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) immediately launched an investigation alleging that Musk had committed securities fraud by misleading investors. As the dust settled, Tesla was forced to pay a $40 million settlement, $20 million from the company, and $20 million personally from Musk. More importantly, Musk was required to step down as chairman of Tesla's board for 3 years, and future communications relating to Tesla's finances were supposed to be vetted. But compliance would prove murky at best. Musk continued to tweet impulsively, often contradicting or undercutting official statements from the company. Each time, Tesla's legal and PR teams were left scrambling. Behind closed doors, there was growing tension within Tesla's leadership. Board members reportedly tried to rein in Musk's behavior, concerned that his erratic communication style was exposing the company to unnecessary legal and financial risk. Shareholders, too, were divided. Some adored Musk's raw, unfiltered nature, seeing it as refreshing in an industry full of suits and spin. Others worried that a single misstep could tank the company's valuation or invite another SEC lawsuit. In the weeks following the funding secured scandal, Tesla's stock plummeted by more than 15%. Short sellers traders betting against Tesla raked in profits, while long-term investors grew anxious. The volatility became a feature of Tesla's identity, and Musk embraced it, often launching public attacks on journalists, analysts, and regulators he deemed unfair or corrupt. The media frenzy around Musk's behavior distracted from deeper issues. While the company was expanding rapidly and making headlines with products like the Model 3 and the Cybertruck, insiders revealed that financial pressures were mounting. In 2019, Tesla faced another cash crunch. Musk even admitted that the company was single-digit weeks away from running out of money during Model 3 ramp-up. Desperate to meet production goals, Tesla implemented what employees described as an all-hands-on-deck culture. Engineers slept under desks. Managers worked 100-hour weeks. Quality issues piled up. Vehicles were rushed off the line with makeshift fixes. Paint inconsistencies, loose trim. Faulty electronics problems that would have shuttered a legacy automaker were hand-waved away in the name of progress. But perhaps the most disturbing pattern was how often Musk made sweeping claims without backing them up. He promised full self-driving by 2020. he announced robotaxis. He said Teslas would appreciate in value. Yet each promise, bold as it was, rarely materialized on time, if at all. These statements weren't just visionary, they influenced markets. Tesla's stock price would soar following Musk's declarations, only to slide when reality failed to match the hype. Critics accused him of manipulating investor sentiment to buy time, raise capital, or distract from bad news. Supporters called it strategic optimism. But to the SEC and cautious investors, it bordered on deception. Tesla's volatility became a double-edged sword. On one hand, Musk's daring and charisma had built a loyal fan base and raised billions in capital. On the other hand, it made the company's future incredibly fragile, dependent on perception rather than performance. A single misstep could destroy investor confidence. And yet, time and time again, Tesla defied the odds. The company would announce record deliveries. Profits would appear just when they were needed most. It felt like the rules didn't apply to Tesla. But that illusion came at a cost, one that would become painfully clear in the next major crisis, a string of deadly crashes that would shake public trust in the technology at the core of Tesla's identity. While Elon Musk's tweets stirred up financial chaos, the real danger was unfolding on the road. At the heart of Tesla's promise to revolutionize driving was its Autopilot system, a semi-autonomous feature that allowed the car to steer, accelerate, and brake on its own under certain conditions. Marketed with flashy videos and futuristic language, Autopilot was portrayed as a game-changer. Customers believed they were buying into a safer, smarter future. But as early as 2016, troubling signs began to emerge. That year, Joshua Brown, a former Navy SEAL and Tesla enthusiast, was killed when his Model S on Autopilot failed to recognize a white truck crossing the highway. The car plowed into it at full speed. Tesla's initial response was cold and clinical. They blamed the driver, not the system. The crash sparked a federal investigation, and although regulators stopped short of finding Tesla at fault, the incident raised urgent questions about how safe Autopilot really was and whether Tesla was misleading the public. Over the years, more crashes followed. A Tesla hit a parked fire truck in California. Another slammed into a police cruiser. Multiple deaths were linked to Autopilot malfunctions, and each time Tesla deflected blame, stating that drivers were instructed to keep their hands on the wheel. But critics argued that the very name Autopilot was deceptive, suggesting a level of autonomy that didn't exist. Internal documents and whistleblowers later revealed that Tesla employees had expressed concerns about the system's limitations, only to be ignored or silenced. Some claimed that testing was rushed, corners were cut, and performance metrics were inflated. Musk, meanwhile, doubled down, insisting that Autopilot was safer than human drivers and promising that full self-driving capability was just around the corner. The issue came to a head in 2021 when the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration (NHTSA) launched a formal investigation into 11 incidents where Teslas using Autopilot had crashed into emergency vehicles. The scrutiny deepened when it was discovered that some of Tesla's promotional videos for Autopilot had been staged with the car's behavior pre-programmed for the demo not autonomously achieved. A former Tesla engineer later testified in court that the public had been misled. Tesla faced lawsuits from victims' families, and state agencies in California and Germany began probing the company's advertising practices. One major lawsuit alleged that Tesla knew about defects in its Autopilot system, but failed to take action, choosing instead to protect its brand image and stock price. Behind the scenes, the company's legal and PR departments worked overtime to contain the fallout. Tesla began tweaking its language, referring to full self-driving as a beta program and warning users to stay vigilant. But the damage was already done. Insurance companies raised rates for Tesla vehicles. consumer advocacy groups demanded more oversight. Even some longtime fans began to question whether they had been sold a dangerous illusion. And while other automakers moved cautiously with self-driving tech, subjecting their systems to rigorous testing and third-party validation, Tesla seemed to thrive on pushing boundaries, legal consequences be damned. Elon Musk often claimed that negative media coverage of Autopilot was part of a smear campaign orchestrated by competitors and short sellers. But the growing list of victims told a different story. In courtrooms across the country, grieving families described the horror of trusting a machine that failed them. Engineers spoke of warnings that went unheeded, and regulators quietly prepared what some feared could be the biggest automotive recall in modern history. Yet Musk remained defiant. He promised new features. He live-streamed rides in prototype Teslas. He mocked journalists and government officials. Tesla fans rallied behind him, eager to believe in the dream. The truth was more complicated. Autopilot wasn't a scam, but it wasn't what people thought it was either. It was a work in progress, one being tested on public roads by unsuspecting customers. And Tesla, in its race to dominate the market, had blurred the line between innovation and irresponsibility. The company had gambled with lives, and while it hadn't yet paid the full price, each crash, each investigation, each lawsuit chipped away at the myth. The Autopilot scandal didn't just threaten Tesla's public image, it exposed a fundamental question: was the company innovating too fast for its own good? While the world focused on Tesla's vehicles crashes and controversial marketing claims, a more disturbing pattern was unfolding behind factory doors. Former employees began speaking out about what it was like to work at Tesla, and their stories painted a picture of a deeply toxic workplace, fueled by extreme pressure suppression and fear. In interviews and legal filings, workers described long hours, unrealistic targets, and a culture that valued loyalty to Elon Musk over ethical standards or worker well-being. At Tesla's Fremont factory in California, some employees claimed they were pushed to the brink, pressured to meet impossible production quotas under harsh conditions. Injuries were allegedly underreported. Medical staff were told to minimize recordable incidents to avoid bad press, and when employees raised concerns, they were often ignored or punished. One of the most high-profile whistleblowers was Martin Tripp, a former process technician at Tesla's Gigafactory in Nevada. In 2018, Tripp leaked internal documents suggesting that the company had wasted massive amounts of raw materials, overstated Model 3 production numbers, and knowingly shipped damaged battery modules. Instead of addressing the allegations, Tesla and Musk responded with aggressive retaliation. The company sued Tripp for $167 million, accusing him of sabotage and theft. Musk even allegedly emailed Tripp directly calling him a horrible human being. Security teams were dispatched. Surveillance was ramped up. It felt less like a corporation and more like a tech cult protecting its messiah. Tripp later countersued, claiming he was targeted for telling the truth. Though the legal battle eventually ended, the message was clear: speak out against Tesla and expect war. Tripp was not alone. Multiple black employees filed lawsuits claiming they endured racism and discrimination at the Fremont plant. They reported frequent use of racial slurs, segregated workspaces, and management indifference. In 2021, California's Department of Fair Employment and Housing sued Tesla, alleging that its factory was a racially segregated workplace where black workers were subjected to daily abuse. The company denied the charges and accused the agency of unfair practices, but the stories echoed a deeper rot within Tesla's internal operations. Sexual harassment claims also emerged. Women described groping lewd comments and being retaliated against after reporting misconduct. One former worker said it felt like being back in the 1950s. Tesla again denied systemic issues, but settlements and court rulings began to pile up. Meanwhile, reports from former safety officers, engineers, and HR personnel revealed an alarming pattern. Internal complaints were routinely buried or dismissed. Employees who flagged safety concerns were labeled as troublemakers. Those who questioned Musk's decisions faced ostracization or were pushed out. A leaked email from Musk himself reportedly encouraged managers to fire people who didn't demonstrate an exceptional commitment to the company's goals, an ambiguous standard that effectively empowered loyalty tests. While Tesla's defenders saw this as a bold, no-nonsense approach to innovation, critics argued it created a culture of paranoia where ethics took a backseat to results. Internally, the pressure was relentless. Gigafactories operated around the clock. Employees were expected to be all in, responding to emails at all hours, skipping vacations, and putting work above everything else. Burnout was common. Turnover was high. But Tesla's leadership framed this as the price of changing the world. Musk often said that working at Tesla was not for the faint of heart. He positioned the company as a mission-driven crusade, and anyone who couldn't handle the stress simply didn't belong. It was a message that resonated with loyalists, but alienated thousands of workers who felt exploited. In this environment, transparency was scarce. Tesla disbanded its public relations department in 2020, an unprecedented move for a multi-billion-dollar company. Journalists found it nearly impossible to get straight answers. Investors had to rely on Musk's Twitter feed for major announcements. Whistleblowers were silenced or discredited. Legal threats replaced dialogue. The company operated in an echo chamber, one where critical voices were pushed out, and the only narrative allowed was the one Musk approved. What emerged was a brand that appeared bulletproof on the outside, but was fraying on the inside. A company obsessed with control, speed, and spectacle, yet increasingly disconnected from the values it claimed to represent. Tesla wasn't just building cars, it was building a fortress. One where scrutiny was the enemy and truth was negotiable. And as internal dissent mounted, so did the cracks in the facade. Because no matter how fast you move or how many headlines you dominate, a company built on fear, secrecy, and unchecked power will eventually face a reckoning. As the internal rot at Tesla grew harder to ignore, cracks also began to appear in the company's public image, especially when it came to the highly anticipated, overhyped disaster known as the Cybertruck. When Elon Musk unveiled the angular, futuristic pickup in 2019, the world was stunned, not necessarily by its innovation, but by its absurd design and the now infamous moment when a bulletproof window shattered during a live demo. What was supposed to be a flex of strength turned into a meme overnight. Yet orders still flooded in, and Musk's charisma once again seemed to shield the company from real consequences. But behind the spectacle, Tesla was falling into a familiar pattern: overpromise, underdeliver, and spin the narrative just enough to keep investors chasing the dream. Years passed without a single Cybertruck delivery. Deadlines slipped repeatedly. The vehicle's specs changed. Its price quietly increased. Meanwhile, competitors like Rivian and Ford began launching their own electric trucks on time and with functioning windows. When Tesla finally began limited deliveries in late 2023, the truck was riddled with issues. Reviews were mixed at best. Owners complained of poor build quality, buggy software, and impractical design. Some called it a rolling concept car rather than a functional vehicle. But the Cybertruck wasn't just a flawed product, it became a symbol of Tesla's deepening identity crisis. It was big, loud, impractical, and divisive. And just like many of Musk's ideas, it relied more on cult appeal than engineering discipline. Meanwhile, the company's financial performance began to lose its luster. In 2024, Tesla posted its first year-over-year decline in vehicle deliveries in more than a decade. China, once a major growth driver, saw demand plummet amid rising competition and geopolitical tensions. In the US, Tesla was losing market share to traditional automakers that had finally caught up in the EV race. Ford, GM, Hyundai, and even Volkswagen were releasing electric models that rivaled or surpassed Tesla in quality, price, and availability. Suddenly, Tesla wasn't the disruptor anymore, it was being disrupted. Worse still, consumer trust was eroding. The company's refusal to engage with the press, continued legal battles, and Musk's increasingly erratic behavior were catching up. After acquiring Twitter, renamed X, Musk became a political lightning rod, alienating moderates and fueling ideological divisions that bled into Tesla's brand perception. For years, being a Tesla owner was a status symbol, but by 2025, surveys showed a growing portion of the public viewed the company and Musk himself as polarizing or untrustworthy. This shift hit where it hurt most: the stock price. After peaking in 2021, Tesla shares began a downward trend, exacerbated by disappointing earnings, falling margins, and underwhelming product launches. At the same time, regulators in Europe, the US, and Asia intensified scrutiny of Tesla's software labor practices and market claims. Multiple recalls were issued, many involving safety-critical features. Tesla tried to handle some issues through over-the-air updates, but others required physical fixes, costing time and money. Investor lawsuits piled up, alleging everything from misleading financial statements to false advertising. Meanwhile, employee turnover remained high, with some senior engineers jumping ship to competitors or starting their own ventures. Perhaps most alarmingly, Tesla's much-hyped full self-driving FSD software continued to fall short. Despite years of promises that drivers could nap behind the wheel, the system remained in beta and required constant supervision. Accidents still happened, lawsuits remained unresolved, and competitors like Waymo and Cruise, though slower, had achieved limited commercial deployment with more reliable systems. Tesla's gamble on FSD, once a potential cash cow, was beginning to look like a money pit. Amid all this, Elon Musk's attention was drifting. Between managing SpaceX, Neuralink, the Boring Company, and Tesla no longer seemed like his primary focus. Investors grew nervous. Would Musk be there when the next crisis hit? Would he stay long enough to fix what was breaking, or simply move on to the next shiny idea? The once unquestionable momentum behind Tesla was now facing gravity. It wasn't a single scandal or one failed product that brought the company here. It was the accumulation of everything the near-bankruptcies swept under the rug. The legal fights brushed aside the human cost, ignored, and the illusion of perfection so carefully curated. Tesla had promised the future, but by 2025, the future was catching up, and it was demanding accountability. Tesla's story is often told as one of triumph, a visionary CEO, revolutionary technology, and the relentless pursuit of a cleaner future. But underneath the sleek exteriors and soaring promises lies a history of near misses, broken trust, and unresolved damage. The company didn't just flirt with bankruptcy, it repeatedly danced on the edge of it, driven by risk hype and a culture that rewarded loyalty over accountability. Its leader, Elon Musk, is both the architect of its success and the source of many of its deepest controversies. From market manipulation and dangerous product claims to toxic work environments and crumbling consumer faith, Tesla has shown the world what happens when ambition outpaces responsibility. The scandals we've explored aren't ancient history, they're part of an ongoing pattern. And as Tesla moves into an increasingly competitive, regulated, and skeptical world, the cracks are getting harder to patch over. Investors are no longer willing to overlook missed deadlines. Regulators are no longer ignoring red flags. And consumers are beginning to ask, Is Tesla still the leader it claims to be? Or just a brand coasting on past glory? In the end, the question isn't whether Tesla will survive, at least not yet. The question is what it becomes from here. Will it finally grow into the stability it has long pretended to possess? Or will the weight of its own unchecked promises drag it back toward the edge? Because in a world where image can be engineered and flaws can be ignored for only so long, the most dangerous illusion is believing you're untouchable, right up until the moment you're not.